Alright, so let's review what we've done. In this video tutorial series, we've created a basic view app, and the basic view app is based on the View Navigator application tag. And the View Navigator application tag has a View Navigator object that you then call methods on to pass in new views. It starts out with the first view, which is set to this basic view app user list view. And here we have on the stage, we have a label. We have a list, Spark list, that's been optimized for mobile interaction. And then we have some data that we've coded in. When you select an object, select a name from the list, it calls the navigator and it pushes the next view, which is user profile, and then it passes in the user list.selected item. This is the data from the list that we selected, and that gets passed into the user profile. So the user profile, when that loads, takes the data and it binds to the properties that are on that object. And we know that it's data.name and data.job. So last part of the tutorial, we talked about passing in data to the user notes. And I know someone is looking at this saying, well, Brent, why did you create another object? Why don't you just pass in the existing data object? And I said, I don't know, why didn't we? And then he said, because you're an idiot. And I said, yeah, but I can fix that. So instead of creating a custom object and passing in this, we can go ahead and just pass in the data object. So I'll just say this.data. And in this view, when we open the user notes, we pass in the data object. Now, when we click over here to user notes, the one thing we have to change, what can you see that we would need to change? What do you think? Anybody? Raise your hand. Okay, so person name is not actually the name of the property on the data object, it's actually just name. So go ahead and save that. Click over here, we'll save this one. And let's go ahead and run this. Let's choose a run configuration. Let's just run it on the desktop. Double click the mobile application. And let's select desktop, and then let's choose whatever device. Let's do the Droid 2 and go ahead and click run. And this launches the ADL. Now, of course, it's cut off here at the bottom. That's okay, we see most of what we need. So here we have our list. We click a person. We now have our notes. We can click that, and lo and behold, it works. All right, now we can also simulate the back button here. We can go back, and we can go back again, and we're back at the front. Now, we talked about the action bar. It's this bar right here. The action bar has 3 sections to it, and you can't see that. Right now we have the title, but we can also add what we would call a navigation item. Can be in this left-hand corner, and then the title gets centered. And then there's a third part we can use, which we call an action content. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's close the ADL. Let's switch over. Now, the action bar is unique across all of the views. And so the action bar is associated with the View Navigator. And the View Navigator is controlled from the View Navigator application tag. And so remember, in the beginning I said we don't add child components, and that's true. We don't add child components to the View Navigator application. What we can do is modify or override the 3 different areas. So let's talk about the navigation content. And so it's called navigation, navi, or navi, depends on if you like avatar. And it's this array. It defines the navigation for the user. Notice how I'm just reading the instructions. Pretty cool. All right, go ahead and press return, and then put a closing greater than sign so that we get this. Inside here now we can define content. So we're overriding the existing content. So let's go ahead and add a button. It'll be a Spark button, and let's give it a label, and we'll call this home. Now we want an action. And so, like I said, the action bar, all of these components show up on each of the views, unless, of course, you hide the action bar. But for our purposes, we want this to show every time, because we want to be able to click that so that we can go back to the main view. Or you could, for example, call it a back button and go back to the previous view, whichever you prefer. It depends on the device, right? If the device has a hardware back button, you may want to set that as a back button, depending on the interaction. So for our example, we have this user profile, user notes, and the list view. And generally speaking, we just want to go back to the list view. So let's create a click event handler. And I could generate one and do that, but I'm going to do this inline, and we're just going to call navigator. And remember, one of the examples, the methods is pop to first view, which is that guy right there. And we're not going to worry about a transition. We'll cover transitions in another tutorial, but for now, we just want to close this tag. Go ahead and save this. Now, click over to design, and notice how we have a home button, right? Now we're looking at the root tag, and so we don't see the title, but if I click over, click back to source, and I click over to the user list, notice here that we have the button and then we have the title. All right, so that's how that works. Now, let's try it out. Let's run this, see how it does. Okay, so we have our home button. Now we're obviously at the root view, so we don't need to worry about it. But then let's say it slides in and then I click home. And then what if I choose a different person and then I choose notes, then I want to jump back to the home view. And there we are. Now if we do a back button, let's change this now to a back button and go ahead and switch over to the back basic view app, back view. Yeah, that's what I meant. And let's change this name and we'll call this back. And now, instead of calling pop to first view, any guesses? We're going to call pop view. This guy right there, pop view. And so what that does is it pops the view that's being shown and you go back one. So go ahead and save that. And let's go ahead and test this. And this time we have a back button, and when we choose, now when we click back, it goes back one. But notice when we have the notes view, remember we just pop one view, and so now it goes back one view. So that's how that works. Pretty cool, huh? Now in the next tutorial, we're going to talk about transitions and how we can change the type of transitions between views. So hold on to your hats, people. It'll be awesome.